Hey everyone, my name is Wedge and welcome to our lxalan Draft Guide. lxalan releases this coming weekend, which means local game stores around the world are going to hold release events. These events are usually drafts. To prepare you for that, we're going to go through each color and I'll tell you the best commons and uncommons to look out for while drafting when your rare is this, or heaven forbid this. You don't want to take these cards, so I got your back for alternatives. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, remember to hit that like button, helps out a lot. We'll begin with white uncommons, as we always do. And quick reminder, just because I don't mention a card here doesn't mean it isn't good or playable, it just means I don't want to first pick it in draft. Alright, the best white uncommon in lxalan Limited is absolutely lxalan's Binding. It targets any non-land permanent you want, and in the event your opponent has another copy of whatever devastating threat you just exiled, they can't use it unless they kill your enchantment first. And enchantment removal isn't exactly plentiful, especially game 1, solid card. Next to the Binding, I'd have to say that Imperial Aerosaur is the best white uncommon. This dinosaur is truly a house on the battlefield. It has everything you want. A 4-mana 3/3 that flies in a format full of giant ground creatures is already valuable, but when it enters the battlefield, you give a buff and evasion to something else that's huge. That's giving wings to a dinosaur and letting it smack in for a bunch. This is one of those rare cards where you want every piece of it and it feels like it should cost more. It's a great card, easily first pickable. Now, just so you know, the white uncommons are actually pretty deep as far as playability, and while the Binding and Aerosaur are the best white uncommons, Bright Reprisal, Emissary of Sunrise, Glorifier of Dusk, Inspiring Cleric, and Steadfast Armasaur are all also quite strong. And I could see you first picking a number of these if you have to. White uncommons, they're pretty deep in this format for limited playability. It's something to keep in mind. Moving on to commons, Pious Interdiction is simply the best white common. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who would argue with me on this one. It is exactly as advertised, pacifism with some life gain. Sure, there are abilities on some creatures that this can't stop, but lxalan Limited, as I'm sure you know by now, focuses on ground battle. It's a real bloodbath out there, and stopping their biggest threat from being a part of that battle, huge, game-changing. The Interdiction is a solid removal spell, always play this, always pick it early. The next best white common is Paladin of the Bloodstained. This could have gone in a few different directions, but I'm confident with my choice. After significant testing, 4 mana for a 3/2 and a 1/1 with lifelink consistently provided so much value, I could never say no. I never cut it once from a deck. It also provided a lot of pressure when it hit the board. The Paladin is a great 4-drop, and if you're forced to take a common first pick, you could do so much worse. On to blue uncommons. Air Elemental is just the best blue uncommon, which to be fair is something I said during preview season. 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer without any drawback is always powerful, but again, we're in a limited format where the ground gets gummed up sometimes. There aren't even a handful of flyers in the set that can take the Elemental in straight combat. The dang thing is a house, and without solid, most of the time non-damage based removal, the Elemental isn't going to die. Curved Hopper for sure, easy first pick every time. The next best blue uncommon is certainly Tempest Caller. This stupid merfolk. It just ends the game on the spot in an aggressive deck, and even if it doesn't, you get an alpha swing, and you get a 2/3 after the fact. Obviously better in aggressive decks, I'll play this in anything. The ability to drop your opponent's shields for a turn, every deck wants that at some point. Great way to surprise your opponent and win out of nowhere. Now, I don't find blue commons to be particularly deep as a color/rarity combo, but there are a few gems. Run Aground is absolutely my favorite. As expected, there are times where this will be a time walk for you. Your opponent plays a huge threat, you pop it back on the top of their library, they just spent all their mana and lost their draw next turn for your measly 4 mana at instant speed. Puts you ahead on board control, cards in hand, basically tempo is what I'm saying. It puts you ahead on tempo. Run Aground is great for any deck. Aggressive, mid-range control, doesn't matter, play this card. Due again to this battle-heavy limited format, Water Trap Weaver is the next best blue common as far as I'm concerned. You get a 2/2, you tap down a giant threat, and you get a couple turns without it bothering you. All comes back to tempo. The Weaver nets you a creature and disables one of your opponents. Exactly what you need when you're either in a tough spot looking to catch up, or when you're ahead looking to squash that last bit of resistance. You'll never cut these. Great early pick if there's legit nothing else in the pack. Possibly one of the best uncommons in the entire set for limited, if not the best, Walk the Plank is the best black uncommon. It's almost unfair to have to compare other uncommons to this card. It's hilariously easy to get double black in this format, and believe it or not, most players aren't running Merfolk, and even if they are, their entire deck usually isn't Merfolk. 99 out of 100 times, you're going to want this in every game you play. Cheap, efficient, wide-reaching, easy first pick, above most rares to be honest. It's just truly stellar. Next to Walk the Plank, which again is absurd, the next best black uncommon is Dark Nourishment. It is expensive, but it's instant speed. You get to bolt a creature or your opponent, and you gain 3 life. Great way to get your life total back in the green while you remove something dangerous, makes up for the fact that it's so expensive. It's a single color, more expensive Lightning Helix, basically. And while that may not seem exciting, the vast majority of creatures in Ixalan have 3 or less toughness. This hits almost everything you could ever want it to hit. Always live, always playable, always worth first picking without question. I know we get caught up in removal a lot in some of these colors, so if you wanted to know the best black uncommon that isn't removal, Wanted Scoundrels. I understand you may not like the risk, but a 2-mana 4/3 will absolutely house opponents who don't have removal ready for it. Eventually you might give your opponent some ramp, but until that happens, this early 4/3, it's gonna beat in often. It's worth the risk, it'll pay off more than not. I had great luck with it. Black commons, we're seeing a lot of what you'd expect. Contract Killing and Vanquish the Weak. I know, removal, how original, but the reason we keep talking about removal is because it's, removal. It's what you need for a successful limited deck. The killing is expensive and at sorcery speed, but has no qualifier for having to destroy something, and it gives you that mana back and with fixing attached. Treasure is a solid reward in addition to killing whatever you want dead. Vanquish the Weak, perfect in this format. Remember when I said a ton of creatures had 3 or less toughness? Just as many have 3 or less power, and at instant speed, it's the perfect early to mid-game removal spell. Now, the best non-removal black common is clearly Skymarch Bloodletter. I'm not sure there's even another black common that can come close to this card's quality. 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer is actually playable out of the gate, believe it or not. It's a nice curve filler, but with the added bonus of a 2-point life swing, simply gravy. This one's not tough. Best black non-removal common, worthy of an early pick. Moving on to red, Charging Monstrosaur is the best red uncommon. Someone fight me, this thing is dumb. If you played this or played against it this past weekend at the pre-release, I think you know what I'm about to say. 5 mana for a 5/5 dino is already a thing. With Trample, kinda dangerous. With Trample and Haste, a beast, a dinosaur to be afraid of. Let me be clear. If you drop this on turn 5, and your opponent doesn't have removal, you probably win the game. A 5/5 with Trample and Haste is simply so difficult to stop and limited. I mean, sometimes games just end. Charging Monstrosaur feels like a mythic rare when it's on the battlefield. It's just a super busted uncommon. Lightning Strike is the next best red uncommon. I rarely put non-removal before the top tier removal, but the dang Monstrosaur is an exception. Anyways, Lightning Strike is even better now than it was in Theros. Higher mana cost creatures with vulnerable toughness puts the Lightning Strike at the uncommon rarity, which is totally fair. The flexibility to hit a player is nice, but I never used it for that, not even once. This is a cheap, efficient removal spell that'll get you through the mid-game. It's solid stuff. A quick note about red uncommons. While the Monstrosaur and Lightning Strike are absolutely the best red uncommons without question, Lightning Rig Crew, Raptor Hatchling, and Stormfleet Arsonist are all pretty top-tier strong uncommons. Again, I don't want to take any of these above the Striker Dino, but they are decently first pickable if the rest of your pack is huge garbanzo beans. By that, of course, I mean garbage. Red commons are alright overall, but not stellar, which is why the best red commons are Fire Cannon Blast and Unfriendly Fire. I know. Unexciting, but they are both reasonably costed removal spells, and you don't need Raid for the blast to be good. 3 mana for 3 damage, even at sorcery speed, is perfectly playable and limited. The Fire, not much needs to be said here. 5 mana is a lot, but instant speed helps to make up for that, and 4 damage gets most everything that isn't a giant dinosaur, pretty far-reaching. Both of these are great and first pickable. Now, if you want a non-removal option for best red commons, Stormfleet Pyromancer is my pick. Raid in any deck in Limited isn't going to be that difficult to trigger, and when you do, not only are you getting a 3/2 that's more than serviceable for combat, but you're also getting a removal spell out of the deal. In most situations, this is a 2-for-1, like Flametongue Kavu, but less belligerent. It's a great underrated card. Time to talk green, then multicolored. Alright, green is my favorite color in Ixalan Limited. Let's get that out of the way right now. I have a little bias, but it's bias born from results. Savage Stomp is the best green uncommon. If you know me at all, you know I value green removal higher than most removal in any other color. It's often so rare you gotta take it where you can get it, but not only is Savage Stomp a fight spell and gets cost reduction if you target a dino, but your creature gets a +1/+1 counter, so not only are you using this as removal, but the creature you still have left over is now bigger. Fight cards are usually always playable. This one is extraordinarily playable, worthy of a first pick most of the time. The next best green uncommon is Snapping Sailback because flash on this creature is super outrageous. 5 mana for a 4/4 with that enrage ability is already playable and honestly, probably near uncommon quality. But when you add flash to it, not only are you creating a combat trick out of a creature, but it makes the enrage trigger that much better and that much more dangerous. Because this has flash, you get to drop this as a 5 mana 5/5 most of the time, while taking something down with it. I can't talk the Sailback up enough. Curve Topper, one of the best creatures in the entire set, total bomb for limited. I do feel the need to mention that green uncommons are basically insane. In addition to Savage Stomp and the Sailback, there are a number of high priority green uncommons that I felt I had to mention because they're all worth early picks. Drover of the Mighty, with Dinosaurs amazing, without Dinosaurs still amazing. 2-mana fixing and ramp is hard to come by in this format, and when you're usually forcing yourself into 3 colors, it's a godsend. Merfolk Branchwalker because Explore alone is broken, and having it on an early creature makes that creature playable, especially when it comes with 2 power already attached. This is either a 3/2 or you get a free land draw, excellent card. At worst, Raging Raptors eats a removal spell or trades in combat, and you get a free basic land with it. It's like Sakura Tribe-Elder, but swole. And finally, Thundering Spineback may as well be a dinosaur planeswalker. Expensive, sure, but if it lives, I don't think you can lose the game. I've never lost a game once I untap with this, even if I'm behind. Creating 4/4 dinosaurs and it being a 5/5 itself, totally unreal. All these are real strong. You thought uncommons were deep, you have no idea what's about to happen. We'll start with the best green commons though. Pounce is the best green common. I know, real shocker there. It doesn't have the bells and whistles of Savage Stomp, but the dang thing is a removal spell at 2 mana at instant speed. What more can you ask for out of a common? Absurdly efficient and affordable, straightforward, done. It's just great. Now, the second best green common is tough, but for me it's Blossom Dryad. I'm sure I'll get some flack for this, but this is mana ramp. It's pseudo fixing if you need multiple of a color of mana you only usually have one of. Look, this is a big format for some decks, and if you're running green, you're running a non-zero amount of dinos and merfolk, probably. Blossom Dryad is a solid utility creature that comes with a respectable 2 power and toughness, fits into anything. If your pack is terrible, Blossom Dryad leaves you super open. When I said green commons were deep, I meant it. While Pounce and the Dryad are the best green commons, almost the entire rest of the color is crazy good, like above average for common quality. In many instances, all of these cards will be playable. Ancient Brontodon, yeah, that's actually decent. Colossal Dreadmaw, Deep-Root Warrior, Grazing Whiptail, Ixali's Keeper, Jade Guardian, Ravenous Daggertooth, Spike-Tailed Ceratops, Tishana's Wayfinder. See what I'm talking about? That's a lot of commons right there, and they're all legitimately playable. I'm not going to first pick any of these, at least most of the time, but they are all just so good. I feel like I had to mention how deep green was in this set. It's pretty impressive, to be honest. Lastly, there are some multicolored cards that are worth first picking. I know you don't often want to commit that early to 2 colors, but it's just one pick. If it works out, great payoff. If it doesn't, that's okay. It's part of a draft. But because of this increased risk, I'm much harder on multicolored cards than single-colored, which is why I only have 3 first pick uncommon multicolored cards. Deadeye Plunderers, Raging Swordtooth, and Shapers of Nature. The Plunderers creates treasure for you. Then they get buffed every time you do that. You grant yourself ramp, fixing, and a bigger creature. That's a lot on one card. And at worst, it sits there as a 3/3 with loads of potential. It could be worth. Raging Swordtooth, you dumb and rage enabler. It's a 5-mana 5/5 with trample and an ability that can wipe out entire pirate forces single-handedly, trigger all of your enrage, or make combat real awkward. Beefy, great card to first pick if the rest of your pack isn't looking so hot. And finally, Shapers of Nature. This is one of the ultimate blue-green payoff cards. 3 mana for a 3/3 is already perfect for me, but then you get the counter/card draw synergy. Hot dang, this leads you everywhere you want to go. If your pack is looking light, Shapers can create a strategy for you ridden with so much value it'll be legendary. And that's going to do it for all my recommendations for Ixalan Draft. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you disagree at all, have any questions, be sure to leave all your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. This is a community after all, right? Let's help each other out. Also, be on the lookout for a ton of content this week that I think you're going to like a lot. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. This video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. Ixalan release is inching closer and closer. It's basically right there, which means that if you order your Ixalan boxes for $89 each on TCG Player right now, you'll have them so soon, so soon. It's a great price on boxes if you don't have a local game store or yours charges way too much. If you want in, simply click the link on the screen. Helps the channel. We all win. Enjoy.
Wow.